Hello, hello, hello. I'm Simona Costantini, and I'm obsessed with helping you connect to your purpose and teaching you about all things mindset, business, podcasting, and everything in between. I realized I deserved and wanted more from this thing called life, so I changed my beliefs, healed my hurt, and made it my mission to help you do the same. I'm a recovering people pleaser turned life coach and podcast producer. I teach busy business owners how to confidently fall in love with their life and business and live it on their terms. On this show, you get everything raw and real, from inspirational guest interviews to deep dives into topics like life, relationships, business, purpose, growth, and mindset. I lay it all on the line every single time. Think of this as your one-stop shop to help you live a more purposeful and inspired life. This is the Happiness Happens podcast. Are you ready to hear this inspiring conversation? Let's dive on in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Happiness Happens podcast. Thanks for joining me again for this incredible conversation. My name is Simona, and I'm the host of the show, and I'm really excited to bring you this conversation with Kimilu today, who is such an incredible soul, and our conversation was so amazing and insightful. First, before we dive in, I just wanted to remind you that I currently have spaces open for 30-minute discovery calls for you and I to go over any podcast ideas that you have, talk about strategy for your podcast launch, wanting to create a podcast but not really sure where to start. So this is really for anyone who's looking to either start a podcast, have their podcast managed, or just talk about strategy in terms of how to grow. So if this is something that you would love to chat more about, please feel free to click the link in the show notes so you can book your 30-minute discovery call and we can get to chatting. Okay. Today's conversation with Kimilu is an amazing one. Kimilu is a global neurolinguistics hypnotherapy life coach, Reiki master practitioner, certified NIA instructor, and certified Sister Stories facilitator. Kimilu has been guiding growth seekers and heart-centered leaders through individual and corporate well-being programs and workshops since 2010. She received her certification at the Bennett Stellar University, then was initiated with Angels at the Spiritual Unfoldment Network in Manhattan. She also trained at Urban Breath New York for biodynamic breathwork, practiced meditation at the Art of Living Center in New York, and trained to become a storyteller at the Story Studio New York. She integrates the art of sensation in all of the workshops that she co-creates for self-discovery, self-healing, and self-mastery. In 2020, she launched her certification program called Sacred Space Certification, a 10-week program designed to empower professionals, coaches, and consultants in their desire to serve their clients, teams, and community members with a heart-centered approach through her distinct mind, body, spirit framework. During the same year, she started her podcast called Celebrate Life with Kimilu Life Coach, which features guided meditations from her 10-day meditation program. She's also the author of Masturdating, Intentional Guidebook to Celebrating Life, which features exercises for nurturing more self-love. So, if you are super excited to dive into this conversation, which I think you should be because it is so inspiring, so impactful, and she shared so much insight with everybody, I would love to know that you're listening. Please share with us on Instagram or any social media platform that you're listening. Let us know what you loved about the episode. And if you're feeling called, please leave us a rating or review because I would love to know what your thoughts of the show are. And also be sure to share this episode with someone you know needs to hear this message. And other than that, I think we're good to dive on into this conversation. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, Kimilu. Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Super duper. It's 2 a.m. here right now, and I am in the Philippines. I am so happy that we are connecting, and thank goodness for technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the title of your podcast. And I want to blurt out my singing, which is happy is what happens when all your dreams come true. Do you know that song?
It sounds familiar.
Right? It's from Wicked.
Oh, I've never actually seen Wicked.
Yeah, so that line is actually there. So I'm like, oh my gosh,
Really?
I love that song. And her podcast is Happiness Happens. So I'm like, yes, let's do that.
Oh
Please
my
ask her if we can be there.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you on here. It's so funny that you say that because my fiance and I went to go look at a wedding venue because we're going to get married this summer. And I opened up the brochure for this one venue, and at the
Yeah,
top of it, it said where happiness happens. And we ended up booking there. So those kinds of synchronicities are just
right.
so crazy to me.
Yes.
So crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, it's been we've been engaged for 3 years, so it'll be nice to get this next step going. I would love if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and like the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
For sure. Well, I would say, I usually say, I'm one of the first here in the Philippines to become a life coach.
Oh wow!
And so I say I'm pioneer. So I've been doing this. This is my 11th year, actually, of coaching.
Wow!
Yes. And when I started, it was unheard of. But before that, that's why I got into it. My story is that I was lost. Like all of a sudden, I had tears falling from my eyes for no reason, or I didn't know what was happening to me. And at night, every night, I would cry, and I didn't know what it was. And I was feeling my chest, and it felt empty, like even my like in my body. Like I
Yeah.
was trying to touch it, and it just felt like it was really empty. So I said, "Oh my goodness, I need to talk to someone." And I didn't think of a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I think because my parents are actually marriage counselors. And as a child, I would see them talk to married couples. But in my mind, I'm like, but I'm not married. And they're my parents, so that's kind of awkward, you know? So I said, I think I need a life coach. And I have no idea where that term came from. It was probably from one of the shows on TV that I saw. So I Googled, the usual life coach Philippines. Nobody was coming up. Life coach Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Nobody was coming up. Where
Wow.
I lived was Makati City, which is the center of the capital, like the CBD. Nobody was coming up. So I said, this would suck if somebody needed to talk to someone and couldn't find anyone to talk to. Like just to process, the feelings and all, or maybe just to help navigate what's the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, there's no one. There should be someone. So I kind of found a gap there, but I didn't know how to be one, to be a life coach. There were no classes in the Philippines. The closest one, I think, was Singapore or Hong Kong, but that would mean I would have to travel there and all that. But then, because of that search, I placed my email address in all of the websites that I looked at. And one day I received an email that said, you neuro linguistic hypnotherapy life coach and Reiki master certification. I didn't know like most of those words. I only knew NLP because I was helping out with a training company, and it was in San Diego, California, and I had an aunt there who lives there. So I said, perfect. I can actually live with her, save more money,
Wow.
right? Um, and so it's expensive, as you know. Like at that time, 10 years ago, it was already $10,000. So, and in Philippine money, it's 500,000. It's a lot of money. Like
Oh my
it's
gosh.
it's like an entire college course. So I had to ask for sponsorship. Thankfully, my parents at that time, they were doing well. So I wrote a long email, and at the end it said, "Can you please sponsor me?" this education, And he replied right away. He was just in the other room, but he replied to my email and said, "Sure, I will support you, but just have a plan." I didn't I didn't have a plan. Nobody was a successful life coach then in the Philippines. It's not as if I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, an architect. It's like there's nothing, there's no model, there's no ideal person to, kind of follow. But I said, yes, I have a plan. It's like going to an interview, a job interview, and you just say, yes, I can do it, but you just figure it out when you're there. So
Exactly.
that's how it felt. And I did. I went there and I did the course. When I came back, I started practicing already. That's my start.
Wow. Wow. So you went right into practicing with clients when you came back. And so, what was it like at that time to be able to be a life coach? Like, did people understand what it was? Did they understand, and it's so different too. Like, think back, like 10 years ago, like, social media isn't even the same as it is now today, right? So, like, where did you even get started when you came back home?
I love your question because when I was only 24 at that time when I got back. So people would ask me, "Hey, so what do you do?" And I tell them, "Oh, I'm a life coach." And it's either they have a blank face because they're like, what did she just say? And others are like, what's that? What does that mean? Like, is it sports or something? Like, they just didn't know. So I had to explain, right? Oh, I help people. I'm like a human GPS. If they're kind of sad, I help them become happier, the whole explanation. And then they look at me again with this weird face from head to toe, and then they tell me, but you're so young. How can you, coach people or teach people? You're too young to do that. And then, of course, I'll tell them, oh, I was, I learned this. I went to San Diego, got certified, did neuro linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, Reiki, all of those things, the whole shebang. And then they won't stop and they'll tell me, yeah, so you learned all of that in another country. That means
Um,
it's culturally different. So how can you help us? It just didn't stop. And because of all of those things, I was so determined. Like, nope, you're not giving me that face again. I'm going to make sure that one day when I say I'm a life coach, you're going to say, wow. I want you to be amazed with this job of mine or this career that I carved out for myself. So those were the looks that I received. And yeah.
Interesting. It's a really really good point too, because it's like people are really skeptical. And it's interesting what you're saying, because I'm also a life coach for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs specifically.
Mm.
And when I first started out as well, like I remember telling my dad when I was like 16, I was like, "Dad, like I want to be a life coach." And jokingly he said to me, he's like, "Life coach?" He's like, "What experience do you have to be a life coach?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's a really good point." So then I kind of put the dream on back burner. But all to
Mm.
say, like, how do you now help people navigate what it is that they really want to get to, like to really become that best version of themselves?
Mm. Well, right now, we focus on growth and I coach heart-centered leaders. So they could be entrepreneurs or like tribe or community leaders. They can even be mothers as long
Yeah.
as, everyone's a leader, obviously. But if they're more heart-centered, then I get to help them. So the focus really would be growth to become the best version of themselves. And as they say, change is the most constant thing, but also learning, I think, and growing would be very constant. And I would say, just self actualizing, that term that I learned when I was in college. When I heard that, I'm like, oh, I really like that word. I want to self actualize. And then eventually, when I got into coaching, apparently that's the goal of coaching, to self-actualize a person, to
Mm.
help them actualize into their, fullest potential, into their entire being as a human person. So that would be for me, helping people become the best version of themselves, allowing them to grow, allowing them to learn some more also about themselves,
Mm.
allowing them to reach their highest potential, or maybe maximize their gifts and talents.
I love that. That's a really, really good point. Maximizing on your gifts and talents. And so,
Yes.
what would you say to someone who maybe isn't exactly sure what their gift or talent is, or like which next step to take, or, what direction to go in? Because it's like, it's so easy to like say all of these things. But what happens when someone comes to you and is just like, I don't even know where to start? You know what I mean? Like, what are some things that you would say, maybe some tips for our listeners so that they can get
Sure.
started in their
Yeah.
journey to self-discovery, right?
Yes. So, I mean, some people don't even want to go to a life coach. They're like, oh, I don't want to spend on that. So here's the thing. Here's the tip. If you want to discover like your gift or your talent or your potential, try to ask 5 people maybe that are close to you, whom you really trust, whom you know will support you in anything that you want to do. Ask them, what do you think I'm very good at? Like,
Mm.
what would be like 3 things I'm very good at? Actually, I have this answer because I did it myself when I was trying to, because I was lost and all that. And they were saying, oh, I think you're really good with people. So I was thinking maybe HR, or
Oh.
maybe is it PR, like public relations. So at least there was some kind of focus, and they said people. Like, you're extra friendly. I asked them to describe me, what their impression is of me. So because of all of those things, then I was able to kind of, narrow down what I was looking for. So maybe the listeners out there, this is your homework. Ask 5 people that you trust, and you know who cares about you a lot. Ask them what they think you're really good at.
I love that. That's a really, really good point because it's really easy to not see our own value within our own selves. But when you
Mm,
ask somebody else, you're getting a whole different
right,
perspective, right? Of all these things that you never even would have thought to have either said or anything about yourself. And so it's just really crazy because all of the people who surround you have all these different perspectives of who you are, and what you're amazing at. But all the time, like very often, we don't see any of these things on our own. So I love that because you're like shedding light on, on what makes you you from somebody
right.
else's perspective.
It's easy, it's free, and you'll get their support. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that so, so, so much. I want to talk about a little bit about quantum leaping. So, you have like the NLP certification, you have the Reiki background. And so, quantum leaping feels very, it's interesting. It almost feels like very connected to, your brain and like the neural pathways and like that kind of thing. But also,
Yeah,
it's also connected through like a spiritual lens at the same time because I feel like they
right.
kind of go hand in hand. But can you just tell us a little bit about what quantum leaping is and then how does it happen with someone's growth?
Actually, I posted this in one of the Facebook groups, and I asked them what they thought about quantum leap. And there were so many people, leaving messages. Some are very scientific, and the scientific people are like, oh, it's like a buzzword, and the people who are just more understanding or positive, they would say something like, oh, well, in a like more human sense and as a motivational sense, Quantum leap would really be something like becoming your best version, using your potential, your talents and gifts as well. And you'll feel as if you're on a different plane, time and space, because you're on a next level. You leveled up yourself. So if you're already a great leader and you feel like, I think I can still do so much more. So you do a quantum leap to become even a better version of yourself. So that would me for me, I mean, with I actually have that program, a one-on-one program, which is called Quantum Leap. Then, that would be how I would be helping the heart-centered leaders.
So, what
Mm.
exactly then goes into a quantum leap itself? Because it's easy to say, like, okay, I want to quantum leap. But
Right.
if someone wants to do that and they have no idea where to start, I mean, where would someone even begin to know how to do that?
Sure. Well, I asked them one question in the beginning of our sessions. I would just ask him, so what are we celebrating by the
Mm.
end of our sessions? What will we celebrate? And then they start thinking about it. One of my clients said, "Oh, I really just want to celebrate a new program that I'm going to do." And the other one said, "Oh, I really just want to, heal." And another one said, "Oh, I want to serve more people." So it's different per person. But then I think that first question of what are we going to celebrate by the end of like 3 months,
Mm.
then that would be the path, and that would be like the leap. So we're taking action towards that big leap.
I love that. That makes a lot. That I was because I was curious, and it
Right.
clears it up. It makes it make a lot more sense because your quantum leap then kind of becomes all of the things that you do within yourself, the work you do within yourself, all of the challenges that you work through, all the limiting beliefs that you go through to really, get to that next level, to like leap into that next level. Very cool. Love it.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. And you said something in there too about celebrating. And so I'm so curious. I am a huge fan of celebrating. Okay. I think celebrating is so important. But every time I have something worth celebrating, which I mean, I think you should celebrate every day, but every time, I bring on a new client or, close some kind of new deal or partnership or whatever, I never take the time to like celebrate it. And I don't really know, like, and it's gonna sound kind of crazy, but I don't always know how. You know what I mean? Because it's like, do I spend money and buy something, or what qualifies as a good celebration?
Well, when I have clients and they say, I mean, before pre-COVID, I would have clients face to face,
Mm.
and they would come to my space. And when someone is really, really happy and they're talking about something they're celebrating, but they don't know yet that they're celebrating it, I ask them, have you celebrated this? And they're like, oh, I haven't. Would you like to celebrate? Or how happy are you right now? I'm really happy. Do you feel it like in your body? Yeah. Do you want to feel it more? So let's stand up right now and let's literally jump for joy with this thing. So we actually jump together. I'm like, yay, congratulations. So that one, it just fills up our hearts, and then I think the cells in our body react to that jumping and all. So that simple act of jumping for joy with that success is already a celebration, and your body like reacts to it. I ask some people to buy a cake for themselves just because, like if they finished a program or even just finishing a book. Okay, how would you like to celebrate? And then sometimes they think of things like, oh, I'm going to have a long bath. Okay, that's
Mm.
celebrating. So it could be like the little things that just gives you a little bit of happiness.
Mm.
So just a collection of those, I would say. It doesn't have to be a material thing or expensive. It can be the simple things.
Oh,
like
I love
napping.
that. Napping.
I love napping. Yeah, it means
I
napping.
love that. I think that that's really important too because you're kind of bringing in all of like the little joys of life. You know what I mean?
For
Because it
sure.
doesn't always have to be this big massive thing. And we often forget that there's so much beauty in like the moment that we're in and
For sure.
you know that it's easy. You like reminded me fully that it's so easy to celebrate like anything with what you have even in your own home and just jumping up and down for joy. Like I love that because I feel like that releases so many different endorphins and
For sure.
feelings and emotions and moving energy through your body, and I love that.
Yeah. Oh, and did you know that I actually have a book, an intentional guidebook to celebrate life, and
Oh.
it's called Masturdating.
Oh.
So that means you just date yourself, spend time with yourself to learn how to celebrate life,
That's
basically.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing. I'll put the link to that in the show notes so that people
yeah,
can
actually,
grab
I
it.
was thinking like maybe while they're listening, they can share this episode on their Instagram, and when they tag us, then they can get, the link to the copy of the book, right?
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so you hear that, everybody? If you're listening now, screenshot
Yeah.
this, share with us on social media, tag both of us. Our handles are going to be in the show notes, and you can get your free copy of Kimmy's book to help you learn how to celebrate. That is so cool. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about self care? And maybe leave our listeners with a tip or two to create that lasting, change of self-care in their lives, because it's easy to do, one or two things here or there, but maybe something that people can take and like actually implement in their lives starting today.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites, maybe I'll give three things that they
Perfect.
can do. And maybe we can call them rituals so that it's kind of like consistent, right?
Perfect.
And they can take it with them in a more long term, not just like one day. So first would be just taking a deep breath every now and then, all
Mm.
throughout the day. Just take a deep breath. And you don't even need to like meditate like for a long time. You just take deep breaths maybe every hour, just being thankful for that breath, being grateful for this moment right here, right now, that I am alive, that you are alive, right? So that's it. Number one. And then that's self care already for me, just being grateful for the present moment. Second would be gratitude for sure. So every like my alarm, I have an alarm for being grateful. So it's at 10 p.m. and I have a little book, notebook, journal, and I write down things that I'm grateful for at 10 p.m. So I don't miss it, and I get to sleep very well because my last thought was what I was grateful for. And for me, that's really, taking care of my mental health and my well being by doing that. And maybe the third one would be my favorite, take naps in between, I don't know, like maybe after lunch, or I even take morning naps. I take a nap before my evening sessions. So nap whenever you want to or need to.
Mm.
They say it prolongs your life somehow. So, and then it energizes you so that you can give more to people when you have napped. So, yeah, those are the three things I would say that I personally practice. And I feel it makes me happy to be able to do all of those things regularly.
I love those. I am not a napper, but now that you've said it prolongs your life, I mean, you can sign me up for that. It sounds amazing. I don't know what it is. I just have this like thing. I'm like, "Oh, but I could be doing other things." You know what I mean? I'm like, and then I start to think about the things that I could be doing instead, and I've just never been like I sleep pretty well at night, so maybe that's
Yeah.
why. I don't know.
Do you sleep for 8 hours or?
Like around like 7 to 8 hours,
Okay, yeah, maybe that's why you get
right?
good night's sleep. Yeah.
Interesting.
Um, I but I still sleep maybe 6 to 7 hours.
Okay.
I just feel like I'm more energized when
Yeah.
I'm able to take a nap. So I can give more of myself instead of like me being just groggy and stuff like that. So there.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Those are great, great, great tips. And those are really easy to
Very
implement.
simple,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Simple, free for free, easy. I don't want like life is simple. Let's not make it complicated.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, Kimmy, this is my last question for you, and it's a question that I ask all my guests when they come on the show.
I hope I answered well.
You'll answer it amazing. I know you will. How can someone create a little more happiness in their day every day starting today?
Ah, I have this term that I learned from one of the books that I read before, and it's called God winks. I believe in God, the universe, the creator, the higher being.
Oh.
So God winks, as in winking, um, and it means it's seeing like the good things in your life. Like, oh my gosh, the sky is so beautiful today. That's a God wink, and he's saying, "Hey, I'm here." And remain happy because I'm here, I'm around. And then like if somebody is kind to you, all of a sudden maybe somebody just gives you or treats you for lunch or dinner, that's a God wink right there.
Oh.
Maybe you're like somebody at home, you're with someone, maybe you with your fiance, maybe he cooks up something, and then that's a God wink right there when it's your favorite meal. So it's just really seeing those little things. It doesn't have to be grandiose.
Mm-hmm.
That happiness happens here. That sign right there, that's a God wink, right?
Mm.
So I feel like happiness are little God winks, and you just kind of collect them in your life.
I love that. That's a beautiful answer. I love, 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 love that. Thank
Mhm.
you so much. Where can our listeners find you?
Well, I am very active on Instagram, so they can all just follow me, Kimilu Life Coach. And well, I have a website, www.kimilulifecoach.com. That's it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Kimi Lou, for coming on today. This was super
Thanks,
fun
Simona.
chatting with you.
Super. I had so much fun.
Me
Thank
too. Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode on the podcast. Remember to screenshot the episode and share it with us so that Kimmy Lou can send you the copy of her book, which is so incredible, and help you celebrate and learn how to celebrate. I know I will be screenshotting the episode so I can get my link because clearly I need more help celebrating. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it. Well, it looks like we've made it to the end of this episode. I'm so grateful for you tuning into this week's episode, and I cannot wait to see you over on the next one. If you loved this conversation and this topic as much as I did, please feel free to leave us a rating or a review wherever you're listening. It takes just a second, and it is so important for us so that we can make sure to deliver this content to those who need it. I'm wishing you the most beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.